What if I told you that everything you thought you knew wasn't the full story? What if I told you that powerful men, rulers, and religious leaders made decisions centuries ago that shaped what you believe today? And what if I told you some of those decisions weren't made to guide you, but to control you? See, history isn't just what's written, it's also what's been erased. It's what's been hidden, taken away, kept from you. And today we're talking about something that will make you think deeper than ever before. 3 books, 3 sacred, powerful books that Martin Luther removed from the Bible. 3 books filled with wisdom, faith, and divine truth. 3 books that could change how you see everything. Now ask yourself, why? Why remove them? Why take away words that were once considered holy? Because when something is hidden, it means someone, somewhere, doesn't want you to see it. Someone fears the power it holds. And if that doesn't make you curious, if that doesn't make you hungry for knowledge, then you're missing the point. Because the chosen ones, they don't just accept what they're given. They seek the truth. They ask the hard questions. And when they find the answers, they step into a power that no one can take away. So today, I challenge you. Open your mind, open your heart, and let's go deep into the knowledge they didn't want you to have. The Book of Maccabees, a story of strength and resistance. The world has always tried to silence those who stand for something greater. History is filled with stories of people who refused to bow, who chose faith over fear, who stood in the face of overwhelming opposition and refused to break. But what happens when those stories are erased? What happens when the lessons of the past, stories of resilience, of unshakable belief, of divine intervention, are removed from history, hidden from those who need them the most? This is exactly what happened with the Book of Maccabees, a powerful text that tells the story of courage, faith, and resistance against tyranny. A book that proves that no matter how strong the enemy, no matter how impossible the battle may seem, those who stand with truth, those who refuse to compromise, those who fight with righteousness on their side, they will always overcome. So why was this book removed? Why was this message hidden from generations of believers? Because it teaches something that those in power never want you to know, that you are stronger than they want you to believe. The Book of Maccabees tells the incredible story of the Jewish people under Greek rule. At a time when they were being forced to abandon their faith, they were commanded to reject their beliefs, to conform, to worship idols, to forget the laws that had guided them for generations. The enemy didn't just want to rule them physically, they wanted to break them spiritually. They wanted to erase their identity, strip away their convictions, and mold them into something weak, something obedient, something controllable. And at first, many gave in. Fear took hold. People chose survival over faith. They compromised, they conformed. They did what they were told. And that is exactly what tyranny relies on. Not just power, not just weapons, but fear. Because the moment people believe they have no choice, the moment they think resistance is useless, the moment they convince themselves that there is no hope, they become prisoners in their own minds. But not everyone surrendered, not everyone bowed down. A small group refused to break. A family known as the Maccabees, led by an old priest named Mattathias, and later by his son Judas Maccabeus, they stood up when no one else would. They refused to let their faith be erased. They refused to let their people be crushed. They refused to bow to fear. And that decision set in motion one of the greatest stories of resistance the world has ever known. At first, it seemed impossible. They were vastly outnumbered. They had no army, no weapons, no resources. They were facing a ruthless empire, a force that had crushed countless others before them. From a worldly perspective, they had no chance. But here is where the truth that they don't want you to know comes in. Numbers don't determine the outcome of a battle. Strength doesn't come from swords, shields, or armies. True strength comes from faith, from conviction, from the unwavering belief that what you are fighting for is greater than what you are up against. And with that faith, with that unshakable belief, the Maccabees rose. They didn't just resist, they fought back. They struck against the enemy with courage, with strategy, with the kind of determination that cannot be bought, cannot be threatened, cannot be defeated. Battle after battle, they faced overwhelming odds, but they would not break. They endured, they fought, and against all logic, they won. They reclaimed what was stolen, they restored their temple, their faith, their freedom, and their victory became legendary. But if their victory was so powerful, if their story was so important, then why was it erased? Why was the Book of Maccabees removed from so many versions of the Bible? Because it teaches one of the most dangerous truths of all, that faith makes you fearless. The world wants you to believe that you are weak, that you don't have the power to stand up, that you don't have the strength to fight back, that you should just accept whatever is happening around you, whatever you are told, whatever they decide for you. They want you to believe that you are too small, too insignificant, too powerless to make a difference. But the Book of Maccabees proves them wrong. It shows that even when the world tells you the battle is lost, even when the enemy seems too strong, even when fear is screaming in your ear, telling you to quit, you still have a choice, and that is what they don't want you to know. Because the moment you realize that you are stronger than you think, the moment you understand that resistance is possible, the moment you truly believe that faith can overcome fear, you become unstoppable. But this story isn't just about history. It isn't just about an ancient battle. It is about you. When they started, they were ordinary people just like you, but they made a decision to stand, to fight, to believe, and that decision changed everything. So now the choice is yours. Will you live in fear, or will you stand in faith? Will you bow to pressure, or will you rise in conviction? Will you accept what the world tells you, or will you fight for what you know is right? Because history is not just something that happens in books. It is being written every single day, and just like the Maccabees, you have a role to play in it. The question is, will you rise? Will you fight? Will you believe? Because if you do, nothing can stop you. The Book of Tobit, proof that angels are among us. There are moments in life when we feel completely alone, when we question whether there is anything beyond what we can see, when we wonder if anyone is watching over us. In times of struggle, pain, and uncertainty, we often ask, is there divine help? Are there forces greater than ourselves guiding us, protecting us, and working behind the scenes to shape our destiny? If you've ever asked those questions, if you've ever felt like you needed a sign that you are not walking this journey alone, then you need to hear about the Book of Tobit. A powerful and nearly forgotten scripture that was once part of biblical texts, but was later removed. And when something is removed, hidden, or erased, you have to ask yourself, why? What truth was so powerful that someone somewhere decided you shouldn't know it? What message was so dangerous to those in control that they wanted it erased? The Book of Tobit holds one of the greatest confirmations of divine intervention, a testimony to the presence of angels walking among us. It is a book that proves that no matter how lost, broken, or hopeless we feel, we are never alone. And that is exactly the kind of truth that some would rather keep hidden. The Book of Tobit tells the story of a man named Tobit, a righteous and faithful servant of God who lived in exile. Despite his devotion, he faced incredible hardships, losing his sight, his fortune, and falling into deep despair. It seemed as though everything had turned against him, as though he was being punished for doing the right thing. Sound familiar? How many times in your own life have you felt like no matter how hard you try, no matter how faithful you are, things just don't seem to go your way? How many times have you felt like your struggles are unfair, like your prayers are going unheard? That's exactly where Tobit found himself, broken, defeated, and wondering why his faith had led him to such suffering. At the same time, in another part of the land, there was a woman named Sarah who was also suffering. Her name was She had been tormented by an evil spirit that had caused the deaths of 7 of her husbands on their wedding nights. She was mocked, ridiculed, and made to feel cursed. No one understood her pain. No one believed in her innocence. She was on the edge of hopelessness, crying out for divine intervention, pleading for a sign that her suffering would end. She was ready to give up, and that's when something extraordinary happened. God heard both of their cries, Tobit's and Sarah's, and in response, he sent an angel. Not just any angel, but the archangel, Raphael. But here's the thing, Tobit and Sarah didn't know it. Raphael didn't come to them in the form of a glowing figure with wings. He didn't appear in divine splendor. Instead, he came disguised as an ordinary man, calling himself Azarias. This is one of the most profound messages in the Book of Tobit. Angels don't always come the way you expect. They don't always appear with shining light and grand announcements. Sometimes they walk among us in human form. Sometimes they are the stranger who gives you the right advice at the right time. Sometimes they are the person who shows up just when you need them the most. Sometimes they are the quiet voice that pushes you forward when you're ready to give up. And that is the truth they didn't want you to know. Raphael, in his human disguise, guided Tobit's son Tobias on a journey that would change everything. He led Tobias to a hidden blessing, a cure for his father's blindness, and a way to defeat the evil spirit tormenting Sarah. Through divine intervention, Tobias was able to heal his father's eyes, freeing him from darkness. He was able to drive away the demon that plagued Sarah, freeing her from her suffering. And through it all, they had no idea that the hand of an angel was guiding them. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you been in a situation where things suddenly worked out in a way you didn't expect? How many times have you met someone who gave you advice, who helped you, who led you in a direction that changed everything? Have you ever looked back at certain moments and thought, that couldn't have been a coincidence? The Book of Tobit is proof that these moments are real. It is proof that divine beings walk among us, guiding us, protecting us, and leading us toward our destiny, even when we don't realize it. But here's the part that will make you think even deeper. Why was this book removed? Why would someone want to erase a text that teaches people that angels are real, that divine help is always near, that we are never alone? Because when people believe in divine intervention, they stop living in fear. They stop feeling hopeless. They stop believing that they are powerless. And a person who is fearless, who has faith, who understands that they are always being guided, is someone who cannot be controlled. The Book of Tobit doesn't just tell a story. It opens your eyes to the truth that has been hidden from you. It reminds you that your struggles are not in vain, that your suffering is not unnoticed, and that your prayers are being heard, even when you feel like no one is listening. This book teaches one of the most powerful lessons of all. God does not abandon his people. Even in the moments when you feel forgotten, even in the times when it seems like your prayers are bouncing off the walls, even when you are at your lowest, divine help is on the way. But just like Tobit and Tobias, you may not recognize it when it comes, because angels don't always reveal themselves. They don't always appear in ways that make sense. Sometimes they guide you through the people you least expect. So now I challenge you to think. What moments in your life could have been more than just chance? Who has come into your life at just the right moment to help you? What situations turned around in a way that seemed too perfect to be random? Maybe, just maybe, you have already encountered divine intervention. Maybe an angel has already crossed your path. Maybe there has already been a hand guiding you towards something greater. But if you don't believe it, if you don't open your mind to the possibility, you will miss the signs. And that is why this knowledge was hidden from you. Because those who recognize that they are never alone, that they are always being watched over, that they are walking in divine purpose, are the most powerful people in the world. The Book of Tobit wasn't removed because it lacked importance. It was removed because it was too important. Because if you knew that angels walk among us, if you knew that divine help is always near, if you knew that your prayers are being answered even before you see it, you would never live in fear again. And that is exactly the kind of power they didn't want you to have. So, the next time you feel lost, the next time you feel like you're walking this road alone, remember this: you are not. Help is closer than you think, and the signs, they are already all around you. You just have to open your eyes to see them. The book of wisdom, the knowledge they didn't want you to have. What if I told you that knowledge is the most powerful weapon in the world? What if I told you that wisdom, the kind that awakens minds, strengthens spirits, and reveals hidden truths, has always been feared by those in control? Throughout history, those in power have never feared weapons, armies, or physical strength as much as they have feared knowledge. Because when people begin to think for themselves, when they start questioning, when they begin seeking deeper truths, they become impossible to control. That is why books have been burned, scriptures have been erased, and history has been rewritten to keep people from discovering the power within themselves. And one of the greatest examples of this is the removal of the Book of Wisdom from the Bible. The Book of Wisdom, also known as the Wisdom of Solomon, was once considered a vital part of biblical scripture. It was studied, respected, and valued for its deep insights into the battle between good and evil, righteousness and wickedness, truth and deception. But somewhere along the way, it was removed. Someone somewhere made the decision that you should not have access to this knowledge. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why would someone remove a book filled with divine wisdom? Why would they take away something that could help guide you, empower you, and strengthen your understanding of the world? The answer is simple. Because wisdom is dangerous to those who seek control. The Book of Wisdom doesn't just tell stories, it reveals patterns. Patterns of how the righteous are always opposed by the wicked. How those who seek truth are always attacked by those who benefit from lies. It speaks of how the wicked conspire against the just. How they set traps for those who walk in faith. How they mock and ridicule those who stand for something greater. This book doesn't sugarcoat reality. It tells you straight up that if you choose to walk in truth, if you choose to stand on your principles, you will face resistance. And that's why this message is so important. Because how many times in your life have you felt like you were being tested? How many times have you tried to do the right thing only to face opposition? How many times have you felt like life was pushing against you just when you were about to step into something greater? That's not an accident. The Book of Wisdom tells you that when you are chosen, when you have a divine purpose, the world will test you. People will doubt you. They will try to bring you down. They will laugh at your dreams, question your faith, and try to make you believe that you are not enough. But do you know what separates the chosen ones from everyone else? They do not break under the pressure. They do not give up when the world tells them to quit. They rise, they endure, they overcome. And that is exactly what this book wanted you to know. It tells you that wisdom is a gift, but it does not come without a cost. To have wisdom means to see beyond the illusion, to recognize the games being played in this world, to understand that everything is not as it seems. It means seeing past the distractions, the lies, and the manipulation designed to keep you in a state of confusion. It means recognizing that there are forces that profit from ignorance, that benefit from people not thinking for themselves. The Book of Wisdom also speaks of how the righteous will be tested, but they will be victorious in the end. It warns that those who choose to live by faith, who choose to pursue truth, will face trials. They will be ridiculed, persecuted, and underestimated. But it also gives you the reassurance that if you remain steadfast, if you hold on to your faith, if you refuse to be shaken by fear, you will see the fulfillment of your purpose. You will rise above every storm, overcome every obstacle, and stand in the fullness of who you were meant to be. Now, let me ask you something. Why would someone want to take that message away from you? Why would they want to erase the knowledge that suffering is temporary, that struggles are a test of strength, that wisdom is a path to power? Because if you know these things, you will not be easily manipulated. You will not bow down in fear when the world tries to break you. You will not allow temporary setbacks to convince you to quit. You will understand that your journey is bigger than the challenges you face. But without that knowledge, without that wisdom, you live in fear. You doubt yourself. You let your struggles define you. You let failure convince you that you are not worthy. And that is exactly what the enemy wants. To keep you weak, confused, and blind to your own potential. The Book of Wisdom tells you to guard your mind, to seek understanding, to never stop asking questions. It tells you that wisdom is more valuable than gold, more powerful than any weapon, more enduring than any kingdom. It tells you that a person armed with knowledge is unstoppable, because the person who has wisdom can never be deceived. The person who has wisdom does not fall into traps. The person who has wisdom walks with confidence, with faith, with purpose. But think about the world we live in today. How many people are afraid to ask questions? How many people simply believe whatever they are told without seeking the truth for themselves? How many people let fear dictate their choices, let doubt keep them from their destiny. That is exactly what happens when wisdom is taken away. That is exactly what happens when knowledge is hidden. People become followers instead of leaders. They become prisoners of fear instead of warriors of faith. But you are different. You are here because you are searching for something deeper. Because deep down, you know there is more. Deep down, you know that you are meant for something greater. Deep down, you know that there are truths that have been hidden from you, and you refuse to accept anything less than the full story. And that is why you are chosen. The Book of Wisdom was removed because it was too powerful, because it taught people to think for themselves, to trust in their divine purpose, to stand strong in the face of adversity. It was removed because knowledge is dangerous to those who seek control. But today, you have a choice. You can choose to remain in ignorance, to accept what has been given to you without question, or you can choose to seek truth. You can choose to dig deeper. You can choose to arm yourself with wisdom, to awaken the power within you, to walk boldly into your destiny, because the world does not belong to the fearful. It does not belong to those who stay silent. It belongs to those who seek, who ask, who search, who refuse to accept anything less than the truth. It belongs to those who are willing to walk the path of wisdom, no matter how difficult, no matter how lonely, no matter how challenging. And if you are listening to this right now, then know this: you were meant to be one of them. So I challenge you today, don't just accept what you've been told. Don't just take my word for it. Seek the truth for yourself. Read the Book of Wisdom. Study it. Let its words awaken something in you. Let it remind you of who you really are. Because once you have wisdom, once you understand the power of truth, no one can ever take it away from you. You will walk in purpose. You will walk in strength. You will walk as the person you were always meant to be. And that, my friend, is why wisdom has always been feared. Because a person who has wisdom, that person is unstoppable. What was Martin Luther hiding? Why remove these books? Why erase wisdom, divine intervention, and the story of faith warriors? Because knowledge is power. Because when you understand that God is always guiding you, when you realize that you are never alone, when you know that you have the strength to resist anything that tries to silence your faith, you become dangerous. And the chosen ones, the true seekers, they don't just accept what they're given. They ask questions. They search for what was lost. They dig deeper. So now I ask you, what else has been hidden from you? What other truths have been erased? Because those who rewrite history do it for one reason: to keep power out of your hands. But today you have a choice. You can accept what you've been told, or you can seek the truth for yourself. You can sit back and let others decide what you should know, or you can open your mind, ask the hard questions, and uncover the wisdom that was meant for you. Because the chosen ones, they don't just follow blindly. They seek. They search. And when they find the truth, they step into their full power. And nothing can stop them.